there's this feeling right now that there's like mass dejection spreading across our land on one side. And there's a feeling that, man, we're not going to be able to do anything about this. Pamela Horowitz has been fighting for civil rights her whole adult, and I would argue younger life, but certainly in her adult life, and was privy to a lot of that from having been married to Julian Bond, who was a veteran of the civil rights movement, a teacher, a thinker, but she herself fought for so many rights for women in terms of fighting uphill when there was nothing but defeat on the horizon. So I thought she'd be good to maybe give us, I don't know about a pep talk, but tell us a couple of things to keep in mind that kept her going and kept people like her husband going. Pamela, welcome to the Mark Thompson Show.
Okay, thank you. I only heard you the last few words.
Well, I said terrible things about you for a little while, and then I invited you on. So I'm so glad you're here. This audience of the Mark Thompson Show is one that feels, in large part, not exclusively and not unanimously, a great deal of dejection and defeatism. And what do we do now? This guy comes in like a dictator. He's got both houses of Congress. He's got the Supreme Court. So I thought somebody who had fought battles like you have, battles like your late husband did, that could talk a little bit about when you see an uphill battle like the ones that you faced and they've faced, what keeps you going? Because a lot of people just want to bow out. And by the way, I'm not saying that I'm not one of them. I have never been so, I guess, pessimistic about things. The pardons yesterday of the January 6th people really were a punch in the stomach. And I just want to talk to you about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, at the beginning of Trumpism, I said that Julian would say, don't agonize, organize. And I think he would still be saying that, as would be, and I know are people, veterans of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, of which Julian was a part. And I think you cannot let Trump win more. I mean, he's obviously won the election, but not win the much bigger issues that are at stake. And, I think I was reminded on King Day that King had liked to say something like, don't let them make you hate them, because hate leads to paralysis, and then you can't fight them. So we don't want Trump to have that kind of power over us. So the last thing, and I know some people who are leaving the country, and I think that it's very important to stay, and that there's plenty worth fighting for, and there are plenty of ways to do it. Already, we know that I think 18 states, they have already sued now over birthright citizenship. I'm on the board of the Southern Poverty Law Center. We are prepared and have been suing, Trump in the past. We're prepared to do it again. And he doesn't command a majority of the country. Right. If the 19 million people that stayed home had voted, we wouldn't be in this mess.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And what happens to the people that did come out and vote in the next election, we don't know, because it'll be one without Trump on the ballot. One would presume, especially if people organize enough. I should mention Trevor Starr in Hollywood saying, love Julian Bond. We have a welcome Pam. We have a Julian Bond Dahagwal saying, Julian Bond used to frequent my bookstore, such a nice man. So really? There you have it. He was there just looking for his blurbs. Somebody asking, maybe Pam, before you came on, and I don't want to walk away from don't agonize, organize. I mean, that to me is that is such a mantra for this. Everyone's entitled for a couple of days of depression after what happened yesterday. But that should and could be motivation, which is exactly, I think, what happened in great movements like the civil rights movement in American history. Is they saw all of this, everything that was unjust, they were stunned by it, and then they organized. And I think that these lessons, and I'm so glad you're here to talk about it with us, are important. Before you came on, Pam, we were talking about Elon Musk. I don't know if you saw his salute yesterday, and we are debating whether or not that was a Nazi salute. It sure looked like it. I don't think that was his intent. I think he's just an awkward man doing something awkward. This is TM who said maybe Pam has something to say about Musk's salute. But most of the people who are viewing it think that it's exactly what it looked like. The ADL, for their part, is saying that was not a Nazi salute, and I'm saying we don't want to obfuscate everything that's terrible about Elon Musk by siphoning it all into one Nazi salute, because beneath the salute, there's a lot worse. What's your take?
Well, to quote my fellow Minnesotan, it was certainly weird.
Yeah, that's true.
If it wasn't a Nazi salute, I mean, it's still so offensive, because he has to know that it would be seen that way by a lot of people. And as far as I know, he hasn't done anything to dissuade people from thinking that that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what one of our viewers pointed out and said, that he should come out apologizing for his quote unquote glitch.
Yes, which we shouldn't hold our breath.
No, I don't think so. Breath holding has not done well with these people, and there's been too much of it, perhaps. Let's talk a little bit about the Southern Poverty Law Center. You brought it up. You're on the board of the Southern Poverty Law Center. They are really taking the lead very often in going after Trump from a legal standpoint. What kind of things happen? Give us some encouragement. I mean, yesterday, we'll talk about the pardons a little bit, but the ones that I'm focused on mostly are the J6 pardons, the ones that pardoned all these violent people who came in. And I don't think that they equate to Biden's pardons, at least not the pardons of the preemptive pardons he did. You can compare them maybe to some of the drug sentences that he commuted or pardoned. But what, from a legal standpoint, there's nothing you can do about that, no matter how many lawyers you have in a building, right?
Right. I saw last night on Colbert in Pod We Trust guys.
Yeah.
And one of them was making the point that this power of the presidency to pardon it doesn't make sense. But that it is what it is now.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that we can do about it, and it's it's a shameful thing for Trump to have done, but he said he told us he was going to do it, and he did it.
And he won an election saying he was going to do that. That was one of the things he said on the campaign trail.
Yes, and unfortunately, most of the time when he says he's going to do something, he at least attempts to do it.
That's
now,
right.
I think they're going to be other things. Most of the other things, I think, are going to be way more difficult. Birthright citizenship, his attempt to end that should be a non-starter. It's in the Constitution, and a lot of things about immigration that he has talked about doing, he isn't going to be able to do, either because the illegality or just the impracticality, because it's going to take too much money and they won't be able to figure out the logistics. And so he can deport a few probably criminals because they're easy to locate.
You're right.
And then declare victory and move on. But it's going to require vigilance. Fortunately, they talk about Trump knows more about what he's doing now in this term than he did in 2017. Well, the opposition knows a whole lot more about him and what we have to do. And so we are much better prepared than we were in 2017. I think, then we didn't really know how bad Trump was going to be. Now we know.
Yeah.
But now, of course, the counter to that is that we have a lot of judgeships that he was able to fill in that first term. And so there are a lot of bad judges, and we see Cannon in the news all the time, and she's an example. The good news is that very few cases actually get to the Supreme Court, and a lot of cases don't get to the appellate court level, and Biden did appoint more district court judges than Trump did. So litigation is still, an avenue, but it's not by any means easy or foolproof way to stop him.
Right. We mentioned in that vein and how to stop him and how to organize a couple of things. I mean, so when we talk about, when you channel what Julian said or would have said was don't agonize, organize, how do we organize? What does that mean to someone who has never organized before? A lot of people said, well, we organized behind a candidate and we tried to win a presidential race and that didn't work. And here we are. What does organizing mean to someone when it's not just simply, obviously, about running a presidential campaign? How does someone who's never organized before organize?
Well, yeah. Well, that's a good question. A good friend of mine, and I think Heather Booth, who is a world-class organizer. That's all she's done all her life, and as a result has participated in almost every movement of our times. And she founded something called Midwest Academy, which is based in Chicago, but they do training all over, and I know they do it in Washington, because I think the best thing is to try to find an organization that already exists that you can join in one way or another, and of course support financially, because Julian always, when there was a Q&A following his speeches, people always wanted to found a new organization. And he thought there were enough organizations. There's an NAACP chapter almost everywhere people live, and a lot of times leadership opportunities, because the leadership turns over. So I would suggest, and people on campuses, that's a ready-made kind of base from which to organize. So everything from, the Republicans have always been better at the local stuff than we have apparently thought it was beneath us, but that's where a lot of this started. School boards, local governmental agencies. Nothing is too small or too unimportant in terms of a place to start. It doesn't have to be a national organization, but there are lots of them. ACLU has chapters, everywhere.
Yeah, so it really is about just looking. I mean, the Midwest Academy stuff sounds really interesting, and we can put a link to that maybe in our chat somehow. But because Heather Booth is a force, and anything.
You can have Heather on your show.
Yeah, we could have Heather come on the show at some point too. That's encouraging stuff. I just think it was important to have this conversation because people need to do something with their dejection and not just be dejected, though they're entitled to dejection, but I think that you sort of.
I think I've been saying, people were in recovery from the time of the election, November, and through the new year. And, now we have to be in action again.
Yeah.
This is not a time to despair.
Okay. Well, those are important words from somebody who's been part of and next to a lot of fights with a lot of victories. So that's important. I mean, Pamela, just tell before you go, Title IX. I mean, Title IX was as uphill a battle as you could ever have imagined, and you were there on the front lines fighting for that.
Yeah. Well, and look at the civil rights movement. And, when they were founded in 1960, what the world was that they confronted was like. And look what they did in 5 years in terms of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So sadly, it has almost always been our history that, we take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back.
Right.
But still, people today who think this is as bad as it can get, need to re-examine our history. The Civil War, Reconstruction, segregation, Jim Crow. I mean, we've been overcoming for a long time, and it's just that you can never let your guard down, and you have to keep fighting.
Yeah. And those are words we will have you leave us with. You can never let
Okay,
your
well,
guard
thank you.
down. You have to
Say
keep fighting. Okay, yeah, not just say them. We will say them and then hopefully inspire people to do it. Jenny Chi writes, great idea. NAACP and Southern Poverty Law Center do great things. And now it's have done such good civil rights work legally. Let's join a local group. I mean, that's part of it. Let's join local groups. And Pam, thank you for the encouragement. Pam, on point.
Yeah.
We've been through way worse. Enough with the melodrama theatrics and fight, fight, fight. That's from Mars in the chat. All right, Pam, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank
Love
you.
you. See you soon. Okay.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.